Welcome to Gumbo Live. L.C. Green here. Glad you're tuning in. This program comes on every Thursday night. And we made a promise to you when we first started this program. We say that it would be informative and it would be fun. And tonight we have some very, very special guests. And because of the position they're running for, it prompted us to do this program, because as I began to talk to you, the listening audience, and those of you who are watching everywhere, this position was basically unknown, and also they both candidates promised that we would, before we get off the air, we would give you an understanding of Common Core. And we got a chance tonight to get both perspectives of it. We hear a lot of things, but normally we hear one side of it. But tonight we have a chance to hear both sides of Common Core, and you make up your own mind with facts. I think that the only way you can make up your mind is with facts. We have to my right Ms. Betty Peters, and next to her is the former city superintendent. Is that correct? For the city superintendent, Dr. Barry Sattler. And they're here, and they're running for, help me with this, District 2 School Board? State School Board. Mm-hmm. There is a position called State School Board, and they represent District 2. If I'm correct now, you are the incumbent. Yes. Because you already hold that position, and Dr. Sattler wants that position. All right? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to let them introduce themselves to us, and for information purpose, we always got to do this. This is FCC and all these other folks. Nobody's being paid. Nobody is being paid. This program, I sponsor this program. I pay for this program. My guests are not paid to come on. I don't pay them to come on. They don't pay me to come on. For the record, y'all know I'm a pastor, and many of y'all out there know that I've been trying to get donations for the program. That's the only thing that, not for this program, but for the program we have at Alabama State, what I was talking to y'all about. But so far as this concerned, nobody exchanged money for this program. So nobody can tell me who my guest's gonna be and who ain't gonna be, and that kind of stuff. All right? So let's start here with Ms. Peters, and you can tell us who you are and tell us about your family, and then we'll go and refamiliarize ourselves with Dr. Sattler.
Okay, I'm a native of Dothan, and right now we live in Kinsey, which is right outside of Dothan, but it's close to 431. And I graduated from school in Dothan, at Dothan High School in '65, and that's where I met my husband in the hallway.
You weren't skipping class, were you?
No, we were changing classes.
All right.
And he wanted to carry my books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I did have books.
Okay.
We didn't have computers back then. We had books.
All right.
So yes, I let him carry my books.
All right.
And my father was a third generation person from Dothan, and my mother came over from Early County, Georgia.
Okay.
And worked as a hairdresser when they met.
In Dothan?
Yes, in Dothan.
All right.
And so all my roots were in Dothan. The only time I've lived anywhere else was when my husband was in the Air Force for 4 years, and when I was putting him through schools. I got a PhD putting hubby through the
school.
Yeah, at Auburn.
At Auburn?
Yeah.
God bless you. All right. Dr. Sattler, refamiliarize us with you.
Well, Barry Sattler, my wife is Judy, and we have 4 children, 13 grandchildren. I'm retired public education administrator. I was a classroom teacher for 8 years, principal for 13 years, and superintendent for 16 years. I retired in 2012 here as superintendent of Eufaula City Schools.
All right. And what's both of them have not hid behind the fact that we believe in God.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then we got a former bishop, and you know, I'm in a denomination that got bishops, so I have a lot of...
I am too.
Okay, good. So we have a lot of respect and love for bishops, and so Bishop, Bishop to you. All right, now let's do this. Now let's do this here. I want each of you to tell us about this position. I've talked to people in education and out of education, and overwhelming thing was that nobody knew this position even exists. So what we need to know now is how long and what's the purpose of the state school board.
You mean how long has it been in existence, or what a term is?
No, how long has this, and the reason why I'm asking that, and y'all might can word it where y'all could understand so we can inform the folks. When you hear it, it sounds very important. But why is it that the common folks, we just didn't know that this position exists? And I'm talking to some folks that in education and out of education. You follow what I'm saying? The everyday folks here. We're at the bread basket, by the way, as always. I just want to let you know, we want to thank the bread basket. But I come here every day. We'll sit around and we'll talk about things, and we talk about Common Core. But we did not know, and when I started telling them that y'all were going to be my guests, and then we started talking about the position that you're running for, and it was far and something new to us.
I think part of it is it's just not usually a high-profile position. We've had state board of education as long as I've been in education, I'm sure way before that. And it's an important role, but it's just not usually publicized like, a state representative or state senator or a national office or anything like that. So there's a lot of people that just are not aware.
So now this is District 2. How many districts are there? How many people?
8.
8 people sitting at the table with y'all. Is that what you're telling me?
We would be among 8 plus the governor.
Plus the governor.
And he has a vote.
Okay. So
And he serves as president.
he said the president of the state school board. The state school board.
Yeah.
All
By
right.
virtue of his being governor.
Governor. Okay, so regardless of who the governor is, it's automatically,
Yeah.
Yes.
okay. Now,
Well, Elsie, you're familiar with local school boards.
right.
Well, the state board serves the same function, basically, as a local board does, except it's on the state level.
Okay.
Work in cooperation with the state superintendent.
Okay. Now, the local school board, that's a good analogy, takes care of the schools here, like I say, in Eufaula City.
Yeah, either
Y'all
a city or a
regulate-
county system,
Okay.
either way.
So y'all gonna regulate the whole state, every school in the state?
We determine the policies for the schools.
Okay.
We don't tell them who to hire and that kind of stuff.
Okay, y'all set the policy and it passes down, like the Eufaula City Schools, whatever policy that they are following now comes from the state
Yes.
school board.
State,
That-
federal,
State and federal, okay. So y'all are governed by,
and local regulations.
okay, so now, let's look at it like this. The federal sends down regulations that y'all have to follow, and then y'all send down to the counties and the local that they have to follow?
Well, there are federal laws passed by Congress, but initially there wasn't much of a role for the federal government in education. It's not mentioned in the Constitution, but over time it's gotten more and more influence because of the money it gives out. And, Congress passes laws, and there are laws that are come out of the particular presidential administration as well.
Oh, okay, now let me ask you this. Are there any schools, we talking about Alabama, are there any schools in Alabama that y'all don't regulate?
Yes, the ones that are not public schools, the church-related or private academies or homeschools.
Betty Peters has a strong conservative record on the Alabama State Board of Education. Betty does her homework before she votes, and Betty will never be a rubber stamp for education bureaucrats. Betty Peters has successfully fought corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. An independent voice for taxpayers, Betty Peters has supported true accountability in our public schools and two-year colleges. Betty will continue to listen to parents and teachers and oppose inappropriate textbooks and fuzzy math in Alabama's classrooms. An advocate for higher academic standards, Betty Peters has voted against Obama's Common Core initiative. With your help, Betty will continue to fight for repeal of this disastrous federal control of our schools. We must keep Betty Peters on the Alabama State Board of Education. Vote Betty Peters on June 3rd.
Betty Peters, putting our children's education first in Alabama. Vote Betty Peters.
Paid for by Betty Peters Campaign, 526 Beatrice Road, Kinsey, Alabama, 36303.
Who regulates those?
They're self-regulated.
Self-regulated.
I mean, we have a little bit of, little bearing on it, but not much. If you're homeschooling, you have to go through some kind of umbrella of a homeschool, like a church, and they turn in some, attendance stuff to us, but we don't really get into what they do.
Okay. So what would be, let me hear from Doc, what would be the purpose of me turning in, what'd you say you turn in?
Like attendance.
Attendance, why? If you're not regulating me, why must I turn in attendance to you?
Well, the law requires that kids, certain ages, have to go to school, have to be attending school. They have some flexibility on whether that's a public school or a non-public school, but they have to show that they are enrolled and attending the
Now,
school.
who says that? You said the state?
Yes.
That's a
The
state
state.
law.
So even if it's a private school, the state still can say some things that you must do. Am I correct with
Just
that?
like you would have to comply with fire codes and that kind of stuff too. There's a certain amount of regulation regardless.
So back to my original question, even if it don't come under the state school board, there is still somebody that regulate everything in Alabama that call itself a school.
To some very, it's a sort of a superficial degree, yes.
Okay. So every school that's not private, y'all regulate those.
Well, we've got the,
Private
the
or parochial or
Yeah,
homeschool,
yeah.
she mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got homeschools.
homeschool, I give
You've
you
got
kind of-
church-related schools. That's a different category. And then you've got just plain private schools
Right.
that are not connected to any kind of church entity.
Homeschool, what responsibility they have to the state? Do they have to give any kind of attendance report or
Yes, they
curriculum?
a minor, just a superficial. They do have to keep up. If you're homeschooling, you would have to keep up with the hours you taught that day and which days, because they've got to have so many days also.
How can you be outside the homeschool? That's I always
You
wondered
can
that.
be outside playing.
Okay, you can shoot hook at homeschool. Huh? All right, that's good. All right. Now,
We don't want people homeschooling if they're not taking it seriously.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get back to in that area, but let's talk about experience. I want each of you to tell us your experience and how have your experience prepared you or get you ready for this job. Now that we know about this position, there's a lot of hot issues we want y'all that you have to deal with. A lot of hot issues you have to deal with. So we will start with you since you're closest to me, and then we get with Dr.
Okay,
Sattler.
what do you want me to start with?
Give us your experience. Give us your background.
I'm
Give us your...
finishing up my third term on the state school board. And my experience before that is I had been a volunteer teacher and a substitute teacher. And I have raised children, been around children, been in Sunday school, vacation Bible school director, that kind of stuff. So I've had interaction with children. But being on the state school board, you also need to know other things. My background is accounting, and that has come in to be a helpful thing. Because as you know, as a superintendent, the superintendent have budgets and things like that to keep up with. And it's very important that you know your numbers and, can
Okay.
read understand about financial accountability as well as academic accountability. There are two kinds of accountability, I consider. And, for instance, in the post-secondary system, you haven't mentioned, and I bring that up.
No.
We also have
Wait a minute.
two-year colleges.
Hold on, just a minute. All right? I'm gonna get into that.
Okay,
And if
okay.
I don't get into it, I'm gonna give you a chance before we get off the air to say whatever you wanna say. So whatever I miss, we'll get into that. But I read now, I just want to see your experience. And I'll be listening for education experience because to me, it's an educational job. All right?
Yeah.
Dr. Sadler, would you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I taught in the classroom for 8 years. I taught secondary social studies. I also did some counseling because I have a degree in counseling in the public schools. And then 13 years as a principal, 16 years as a superintendent. I've dealt with the budgets that Ms. Peters was talking about on a local level and making budgets and that sort of thing. But also I've been quite involved with the Chamber of Commerce and creation of jobs and helping get kids ready for jobs is an important thing to me. And so my work with the Chamber has helped me to see what we need to do to try to attract industry, to try to maintain jobs. So I feel like all of that helps me to be qualified to serve in this position.
Now, how much do this job goes beyond not physical, but actually education? You said some things about creating jobs and budgets and all that kind of stuff. It seemed like to me that's a little out of the realm of education, but I'm sure y'all can tell
Remember,
me.
we're talking about policy, right?
Oh, you talk,
Policy
okay,
issues,
all right. Go ahead, you want to say
It
something?
goes back to what Ms. Peters was talking about, the community colleges also, which do a lot of that kind of work, that the state board is over the 2-year colleges.
Okay, all right, okay. I'm sorry, I cut you off on that point. So y'all, the state board that you're running for and that you already have, y'all also regulate 2-year colleges?
Yes. We actually are
Oh.
the identical board for 2 different bodies. You've seen the Sparks campus down here
Sure.
of Wallace College.
Right.
Okay, that's part of it. And I have, in our district, we have 5 2-year colleges. And Wallace, in Dothan with the branch, and here in Eufaula is one of them.
Yeah, I see you got how many
13 counties.
Yeah,
26 school systems.
okay. Houston,
And
Henry,
the good
Russell,
thing,
Randolph.
the one thing I think is good about our system in Alabama, it's not the same across other states necessarily, is because we as a body sit over 2 different groups. We can kind of see where there's interaction, connection. For instance, the dual enrollment program where students it's still in high school, and for the same class, get credit in high school for graduation, as well as 2-year college credit that may go on a degree there or a certificate there. So we're able to better utilize the taxpayers' resources.
Okay, help me understand this. I remember when I first moved to Alabama, they had a thing called a certificate of graduation. It was not a diploma. Somebody went to high school. Now this was in Mobile, so I'm not sure if it's.
I don't think
But
we have that in Dothan.
somebody went to high school. Well, that's Mobile still in the state.
Yeah, it is.
So it still comes.
Yeah.
And I was always shocked that a person could go to school, high school for 4 years and not get a diploma, not get a graduation diploma, but they got something called
Perhaps it was a certificate of attendance, something like that, which meant you were there, but you didn't get enough credits to get a diploma. Is that what you think he's talking about?
I think so. The state has always had a few diploma options, like the standard diploma or diploma with advanced endorsements and those kinds of things. But local systems sometimes would say, well, we're going to give you a certificate of attendance. It's really not something that's state recognized, because if you are there and you really don't meet all the other requirements, we're just going to give you something.
But you're out of high school, though. I mean, you're coming out just like everybody else.
Yeah, but you're coming out without any kind of credential. and some of them would go back and make up the classes or take a GED. When we had the period of time when we had the graduation exams or high school, if someone missed one of those, he or she couldn't graduate, but maybe could finish it up in the summer. And so in some schools, they would let them wear the graduation regalia and go across the stage so they wouldn't be embarrassed. But they didn't have anything they could take to a Chamber of Commerce event saying, I'm certified to do something.
Yeah, okay. I always thought that was something wrong with it.
Ladies, unlock the cash value in your jewelry box. Sell your gold on Dale Road. We buy gold jewelry, bent or broken, at Eufaula Flea Market, 354 Dale Road.
Sell your gold on Dale Road. Sell your gold on Dale Road. Mr. Pond buys gold on Dale Road. Mr. Pond buys gold on Dale Road. Sell your gold on Dale Road. Sell your gold on Dale Road.
But now you said something that triggered something else. That's a major conversation. Teachers are teaching for the tests. They're teaching students what's necessary to pass the test. Now let me tell you one example that we talk about right here in the breadbasket all the time, is that they are concerned more about the process than the right answer.
Yes. That's a comment I've heard.
Okay, is that so?
I think it's true in math a lot, especially under certain curricula being used under, say, Common Core. For instance, the Go Math textbook and the curriculum that's with it, the worksheets and all.
Wait a minute.
I've had complaints about that book.
Okay, so that comes under Common Core.
It's Common Core aligned.
Okay, we're going to talk about Common Core in just a moment.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that in just a moment. True or false? You can get the wrong answer, but if you got the right process, you get credit for it.
You
True or
get some
false?
credit, yes, in some classes.
I don't know about that.
I mean, 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12.
I know.
Well,
If I say 2 times 6 is 13.
Part of what we're trying to do, and this is discussion with teachers, is we want to understand the process, so when the facts are different, they'll still be able to transfer the process to different situations. It's more life situations too. And so it's really a local decision. You've got standards, but it's still a local decision about textbooks, a local decisions about outside reading materials. It's a local decision about a lot of this stuff.
Now explain to me one more time. When we say it, now when I was in school, 2 times 6 is 12 when I was in school. But now what I'm understanding now, if I put 2 times 6 is 13, and if I can explain the process how I got 13, I'm gonna get credit for it. Yeah, am I right?
I don't know if anybody's giving credit for.
That's what I understand with certain worksheets out of certain workbooks that go with certain textbooks. Yes. I mean, not all of them. No, some of the, and I don't think they would get full credit. They would get partial credit, and this seems mainly to be in the elementary schools that are using certain programs. It is not written into the Common Core standards that you must do it that way.
Now
I know it's confusing.
I'm ahead of my time, man. I used to get a lot of wrong answers.
I remember in high school taking algebra and geometry. Our teacher would give us partial credit if we followed the right process and maybe miscalculated on one part of it, and we would get some credit there. So I don't think partial credit is anything new. But certainly if you're talking about a problem about 6 times 2 is 13, I don't see how anybody can give you credit for that, and I'm not aware.
Well, there have been cases of that, and I've seen it on TV, and I've seen some local stuff where the parent
Now, let me ask you
copies
this.
the worksheet that the child got. And for instance, if, say, a child was able to we're talking about elementary school. I don't know about the higher grades. I haven't had complaints about the higher grades. But I've had a lot of complaints for kindergarten through 5th grade.
Isn't that not the basics? I mean,
Oh, absolutely, it's
Yeah.
the basics.
But
educators tell you if you get the first 5 years, it's smooth sailing from there.
let's put it this way, if you don't get the first 5 years, if you don't get the first 3 years, you're gonna have a rough time unless you can get caught up somehow, and it's difficult to catch them up.
Let me ask you this, because this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing. Has not politics got into our education system?
I think so.
Would you agree with that?
I would.
And I'd say money from vendors has gotten into our
Okay, so
system.
would you not say that the only reason somebody would come out and excel 2 times 6 being 13 is to argue for either their point or against somebody? It's strictly political, because nobody wants your child, nobody want our children, who is our future, walking around not understanding the right answers
I
of
agree.
anything.
I agree.
So I'm thinking that when those type of statements are made, that's strictly politics.
Well, yes, it might be considered in some cases educational philosophy.
No, see, okay, let me say this now, y'all help me with this. None of us can change math.
No.
I mean, math is set. I mean, the multiplication tables are set, been that way for
Unfortunately,
years.
many do not know the tables, but yes,
Well,
they have been said. They're not going
but
to
those
change.
that know them, those that know the tables,
Yes.
they're set.
Yep.
And we can't change that. So we can't make 2 times 6, 13. We can't make that.
No.
Am I right?
And it's not 13.
It's not. You understand what I'm saying? So the only reason that would be said that that's acceptable is for your argument either for or against whatever we're talking about. Am I in the right base with that?
Yes. And that's what's frustrating so many parents and so many students. For instance, if you have a 3rd grader and he's multiplying, and he does it the way you and I were taught, and probably you too, we're probably kind of close in age, sort of. I may be younger than y'all. I'm kidding.
We ain't gonna mess with that.
Anyway, but for instance, my sister-in-law is a lot younger than my husband and I. She was our little flower girl. And when it came time so this is not all a new concept. Stuff comes around. It's like ladies' shoes and dresses and hairstyles. They come and go, you know. Think of, let's don't think of leisure suits, but anyway. But when little Sherry, it was time to learn long division, they had just implemented something called New Math in the Dothan elementary schools. And we came home from Auburn one weekend, and she asked me to help her with long division because she couldn't understand it, and her parents couldn't help her. So I said, of course, I've been doing that for years. I've helped other people. So I said, give me your book. Got the book out, and I went, oh, I can't do that. That doesn't make any sense to me.
So your Auburn let you down.
No, my Auburn didn't let me down. No, let me finish my story now. So I told her, I said, this is how we used to do it. And it always worked. You know, you put like 25 and you do the little symbol for long division and you just work it and, you multiply and subtract and all that. So I said, here's how we used to do it. And it got us to the moon, So she looks at it and she tries it and she said, yeah, I can do that. She goes to school the next day and the teacher would not accept her homework because she didn't do it that new funny way. So next time we came home, she asked her brother, who was about to graduate in civil engineering at Auburn, and he told her the same thing I did. And he told her, he said, you forget what the teacher says. This will always work. You'll always get the right answer. And that is not going to get you anywhere. Now, you know what Sherry does today?
What? Teach math?
No. She, as a professional engineer, passed her exam the first time, which is hard. It's like the CPA or the bar exam. And she is a division chief for the highway department
Let me say
up
something.
in Pike County.
Let me say something, okay? Because my little dime won't get me very far. There's gonna be times I'm gonna cut y'all
Yeah,
off.
okay.
Okay? Especially if you trigger something. I'm gonna cut you off, and I wanna be fair at the time. I don't want
sure.
no one person to dominate the time. But, you said new math, new,
That's what it was called.
okay? What was new about math?
It wasn't doing it the traditional way. I mean, that's what
Who
they
came up
called
with
it.
that? Anybody know?
I don't know.
I'm not sure who came up with new math. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Seemed like to me
Well,
when you,
Sherry's in her 50s.
when you come to something new, that means that's something that,
It was a new approach,
okay,
just a new approach.
that makes a big difference. All right, now,
Yeah.
let's do this, Let's get down to what everybody that's listening for, and the people watching, and I can assure you, I'll always announce ahead of time what program I got, and this is well watched. For or against Common Core?
Against, I voted no twice.
Well, we have in Alabama what's called Alabama College and Career Readiness Standards. Most of that is based on what was nationally and internationally benchmarked, put together by a group of governors and state school officers, along with teachers from various organizations. It was done in order to try and help students to be able to be college ready and career ready by the time they finish the 12th grade. So it was a simplified thing. Instead of trying to teach a mile wide and inch deep, it was an attempt to try to pull those core things together that we really need to know for kids to know when they graduate. And so Dr. Bice, the state superintendent, put together some committees composed of parents and composed of educators that looked at this thing and decided what we needed. We needed to add some new things to it, and came up and passed the Alabama College and Career Readiness Standards. Now, I feel like those standards are helping, and I think the main thing, and this is what I say everywhere, is if you want to know if it's working, not if it's controversial, not if it's a political hotbed, but if you want to know it's working, go to those schools and talk to those teachers and visit those classrooms and talk to your superintendent and talk to your principals. I've talked to those people and I haven't heard anything like what I hear about how bad it is. I had one teacher tell me that some of the math in the 4th grade may be a little advanced. But other than that, I haven't heard any
And I
negative.
don't agree with anything he said.
Okay, wait a
So
minute.
what I'm saying is that what was passed by the state, what is working, in my opinion, by the state, then I have supported that.
Betty Peters has a strong conservative record on the Alabama State Board of Education. Betty does her homework before she votes, and Betty will never be a rubber stamp for education bureaucrats. Betty Peters has successfully fought corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. An independent voice for taxpayers, Betty Peters has supported true accountability in our public schools and two-year colleges. Betty will continue to listen to parents and teachers and oppose inappropriate textbooks and fuzzy math in Alabama's classrooms. An advocate for higher academic standards, Betty Peters has voted against Obama's Common Core initiative. With your help, Betty will continue to fight for repeal of this disastrous federal control of our schools. We must keep Betty Peters on the Alabama State Board of Education. Vote Betty Peters on June 3rd.
Betty Peters, putting our children's education first in Alabama. Vote Betty Peters.
Paid for by Betty Peters Campaign, 526 Beatrice Road, Kinsey, Alabama, 36303.
Now, is that Common Core? The question, I mean, what you call it? You said
Alabama College and Career Readiness Standards.
Okay.
And that's what was
Career
passed.
readiness.
That's what was passed in Alabama.
Okay. Well,
Now, the
how did Common Core?
heart of it is the same as the National Common Core.
Okay. That's how Common Core got in there. That's the terminology we throwing around. But the term we use is not really the official term of what we actually doing.
What's used in Alabama is Alabama College and Career Readiness.
You can call it whatever you want to, but when the name got controversial, every state changed the name.
Wait a minute.
Like Arizona College and Career Ready. The original intent of it was, each state would have 100% of the college and career ready, and they could add on up to 15, of the Common Core, they could add up to 15% in the math or in the English language arts part. They could add an additional 15%, which won't be tested probably on any kind of, standardized test.
Maybe we need to do this. Maybe we need to get definitions. Maybe we need to use definitions. Maybe we need to use, because I hear Alabama standard. Help me with that.
College and career readiness.
College and career readiness. That sounds good. But now, when I hear Common Core, because of what we're hearing, that sounds negative.
That's why we have to
what I'm
change it.
saying? So let's get definition. Are they both the same, Dr. Sadler? Or is it
Not
different?
exactly, but for the most part.
If we were going to define it, if we was going to give a definition, if you was going to define what is the Alabama Standard College Readiness Course, and you was going to define Common Core, with the definitions, would they be different? Would they be the same? I'm talking about definitions. I ain't talking about what's in practice. Let's just talk about what's definition right now.
Are you talking about definitions or names?
I'm talking about definitions. The definition.
Well-
If you define Alabama Standard College Readiness, the word you just used. If you define, if you had a few seconds to say, a few minutes to say, this is what it is, and then you came back and said, well, this is what Common Core is. Would the definitions be miles apart, or
No.
would they be the same?
Close. I'd say the Alabama College and Career Ready standards are the Common Core State Standards Initiative standards in Alabama.
And how would you define it?
I mean, I can't really argue with that. I mean, it's, like I said, it's pretty much Common Core with some things changed for Alabama.
Okay, so both of them want the same, we changed the name, but both of them want the same results. Both of them want us to get ready for college.
And so did the previous standards. And so did whatever we used when I was in high school. We all wanted to be, the intent of the public education system all along has been preparing students for the world of work or to go to college, either way.
The latest National Association of Educational Progress showed Alabama the 50th state on their test scores. So obviously what we have been doing has not been working.
Now, not to take sides, but that statement that Dr. Sattler just made is what I'm hearing from principals. See, anytime I got guests, I try to do my homework. I try to find out as much information, because I don't want to sit here and be the only ignorant person at the table, you know what I'm saying? Now, the principal told me this, and I've talked to several principals here and Dalton. I got friends all over the place, and I've called them. And they said that if we don't do, and I'm going to use Common Core, I'm going to use that word, okay? So if we don't do that, then we got to go back to what we used to do. And so what we used to do just ain't going to work.
No,
now.
that was in a bill that Senator Beeson and some others were working on. But it could go to anything you wanted it to.
What bill?
I don't remember the number,
Okay.
you may know the number. There was a bill to repeal Common Core, and it specified going back to the standards that were in place before Common Core. Well, actually, we never implemented the 2009 math standards, which were excellent. We never implemented those. We passed them, we voted for them, and they actually were tougher than the previous ones because it mandated that all children would have to be taught the multiplication tables up to times 12, which wasn't the case before, and it's not the case now.
All right, no.
But we could go back. We could go back to what we had before. We could borrow Massachusetts. We could do whatever we wanted to.
Well, Dr. Bice said it'd be back to 2003.
He said take us back to 2003.
No, he said it would take us back to the 20th century.
Well, look, this what happened. This what happened. Somebody looked at something and seen that we wasn't getting the most out of it. We wasn't preparing our children to the best of their ability. So somebody, I don't know who, somebody said, okay, we need to do something different. And
They've been saying that since the 1980s when it was a nation at risk. They said we weren't and they tried to get in Goals 2000 at that time. It was the same thing.
Let me give you a prime example with my phone. I got a smartphone, and my smartphone smarter than me. I use my high school education, and my high school education leaves me short. Now my daughter, my baby daughter, can operate that smartphone because between the time she was born and I finished school in '68, somebody made some changes in the way they educate us. Okay? You follow me so far? So, this question, both of y'all. Is our education system at a point where it don't need to be changed?
No, I would disagree with that. I think you always got to change, but let me tell you one of the things that's different between you and your child or your grandchild.
Okay. Brain
Research shows that they are wired differently. They respond differently to different stimuli, and they're wired to where they're much more curious. They learn by trying. We would get a manual out and try to figure out how to operate it. They would just grab the thing and start working, and they would learn by experience, not by reading like we would do in the past. But you always have to have changes because situations change, kids change. They haven't changed as much as a lot of people think. I think parents have changed probably more than the children have changed. But wired, their brain operates differently. So you can't do what you did before. And I tell teachers this, you can't teach the way you were taught because your students don't learn the way you learned. And so you always have to have change.
Ms. Peters? How you would respond?
I think...
First of all, change or no? Do we need...
I think you always going to have to be some change. I would hope everybody is searching for improvement. But I think if you could bring my first grade teacher back, Mrs. Ruth Pellin, who died not long ago after reaching age 100. I think Ms. Pellin could take a classroom, kindergartners, first graders today, and have them eaten out of her hand. And she would be teaching them to read phonetically just the way she taught me. She'd be teaching them the math just the way she taught me. I think it'd be fine. I'm sure there were some teachers back then that didn't do all that well. You know, you've always had some really good teachers and some that weren't so good. But the 12th grade teacher I had for English, for college prep English, I think if there was a way to clone her, we would be way better off. She was a magnificent teacher. And I wouldn't change anything if I could create a perfect teacher. It'd be just like Miss Brown was. Miss Brown, I'm sure she would be able to use a computer. But we learned just a breathtaking amount of stuff, and she taught us how to enjoy learning.
Make your shopping dollars go further at Finders Keepers in Eufaula. At Finders Keepers, you can find everything from gently worn clothing, housewares, toys, and much more. Get a 10% discount if you're a senior, veteran, or a Wallace student or staff. And get a reward card for still more savings. Finders Keepers, 102 Edgewood Drive in Eufaula, behind the Shell Station.
Okay, now let me, I want you to correct me what you're saying. You're saying we need changes, but at the same system, you're saying the old system would work.
Yeah, I mean, there's bound to be some little changes that are going to be needed here and there. I wouldn't want to turn a child out of high school without some kind of ability to type on a computer and that kind of stuff. But I do think we've gone way too far on computer dependence. There are places like Silicon Valley where they don't let them use calculators. I was just talking to a recent graduate from an engineering school in Scotland at an airport, and I'm always asking people from other places how they do things, and he said they were not allowed to use calculators. So I think we need to take the best of now and the best of the past, and not just go crazy over something because it's new, because it's a new fad. There are a lot of tried and true things. The older books for reading, I think, are far superior to most of the contemporary fiction, for instance. And I don't like something just because it's new, but I'm not going to refuse to go along with something if I can see that it actually would be better.
Now, are we still, when I was in school, reading, writing, arithmetic? See, if you had reading, writing, and arithmetic. You remember that? You remember
The
that
three
statement?
R's, they've been
Yeah.
replaced by rigor, relevance, and relationships.
Now, let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I'm gonna relate to you some of the conversations I have with I hang out here, that we just common, everyday people hanging out here.
It's like the old Pot Village stove.
There you go, and we just talk what we hear and some of what we know, okay? I've heard, sitting right in here, that one of the things, and this is blamed on Common Core, that it promotes same-sex parenting.
What was the last word you said?
Parenting,
Parenting.
or marriage, or what have you, however. Now, I don't know how that get in the curriculum. I don't know how it
I
get in
could
there.
tell you how it could get in there.
Well, is it in there?
I don't know. I said I could tell you how it could get in there.
Okay. Is it in there, Dr. Sadler?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't imagine a teacher in Alabama with the conservative values we have doing something like that. If there was one, I'm sure it would be taken care of pretty quickly. However, you talked about politics, and to me, that's one of those political things. People are just trying to come up with something to do away with something they don't like, and so they're coming out of the woodwork with stories like that. I think in some of when the federal people talked about race to the top, there were some things that were out there about reading assignments that were never approved by Alabama. And so I think that's where some people are grasping at straws.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask both of you this. Y'all help me with this. Common Core is not just Alabama. That's every state that's dealing with this, right? Does it vary from state to state?
46, something like that.
Does it vary from state to state?
Yeah, it varies, but, for instance, there might be 15 math books that you could use. I'm just picking a number out.
Okay, but
That you
it's
could
not a
use, but-
standard then. If it varies from state to state, then it's not a
Look,
standard, is it?
You talked about defining. Could I back up and let us define something?
Okay, all right.
Back in 2009, both Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan and President Obama both said separately in 2009, I've read the quotes, they both referred to this as the Common Core State Standards Initiative, CCSSI initiative. And they both said it would transform education. Now, we've got to look at the whole initiative, and that is not just the standards for math and English language art, not just that, but they tacked on, somewhere along the line, right before we voted, they tacked on literacy in some other subjects, like science, social studies, what was it, the arts or something? There were several other things. So you could put a reading in there, it could be testing on your standardized test on some readings that might have something like that. Now, I will tell you, there are already national sexuality standards, sexuality education standards. Have we voted for them? No, we have not voted for them.
Okay,
Do we have something called National Day of Silence? Yes, it's in some schools. Is it part of Common Core standards? No. But that goes on, and that does bring up some readings like you might talk about, that attitude. But it's not a standard yet.
Okay, now, help me with this. How we doing? Did you give me your signal?
Have we gone to the 2-hour mark yet?
I don't want to, are we ready for our commercial break? You want to do a commercial break now? No. All right, let's go. Look, when I hear the word standard, okay, that means, I'm ex-military, okay? And we had SOP, we had a standard operating
I know
procedure.
exactly, I worked
all
with the
right?
military, yeah.
And this is what you do. This is what you do. And everybody in the military did it. Everybody in the military did it. You couldn't have a base in Alabama doing one thing and a base in Louisiana doing something. Everybody in the Army did it, and the Navy had their own, but everybody did it. So what I'm trying to find out now, how can this be the standard? Alabama being a conservative state, so we ain't dealing with this homosexuality, we ain't dealing with evolution.
We're already dealing with evolution.
What's the standard? What's the standard? Yeah, help me. What's the standard? And is there a standard, or does everybody have the luxury of just doing what they want to do?
Well, when you talk about SOP, you're talking about a procedure. You're talking about how you go about doing something. The standards is what you're trying to accomplish, what you want students to know when they reach a certain point. It's not the curriculum. And so you got a lot of different interpretations locally about how you're going to implement this, what textbooks you're going to use. All those are local decisions. But we want our children to know this when they get to the 12th grade, and then we back that down to if they're going to know this by the 12th, they got to know this by the 11th, they got to know this by the 10th, and backing them down that way.
Okay, hold that point. That's good. That's good.
So it's
All right.
not curriculum.
Okay, so you're saying, by the time I get to the 12th grade, we want every student in Alabama to know this. We all three of us agreeing on that. Okay?
Because it's been determined essential for their success in college and career.
Okay. The board have determined that your job
They've affirmed it. The majority affirmed it.
that this is what you need to know at 12th grade. All right? But now locally, I can use whatever material I need to, I can use any material I want to get here? Is that my understanding?
You can only use the textbooks that have been approved by the state if you are going to be getting state money. If you're going to approve something that hasn't been turned down, but hasn't been approved, you would use local money. If you want to use something that was rejected, then you can't use it at all.
Let me clarify that.
Okay.
Because I've heard reports from not hundreds, but every year I'd hear a report from our textbook committee. The state passes a wide variety of potential textbooks.
Yes.
And then the local district, their teachers involved, they have parents on this committee, they go out and they bring those textbooks in and they study those textbooks and they decide for our purposes, we feel like this would be the best textbook for our district. And so once they do that, then they bring that in. Now, any supplemental stuff like a reading list, people are talking about these reading lists are bad. Well, when my first year as principal in Abbeville, we had a controversy on something on a reading list for English 11 or 12 or whatever it was. So we've always had that. We've always had people that would be concerned about something on a potential reading list. So what happens is those people decide what textbook to have, and if there's any supplemental materials that they want to use, they have to get approval, usually through the principal's office, of bringing those extra materials in. So to say that if you don't use, something the state approved, you can't use it in a class is not.
I was talking about the textbooks.
Okay.
Betty Peters has a strong conservative record on the Alabama State Board of Education. Betty does her homework before she votes, and Betty will never be a rubber stamp for education bureaucrats. Betty Peters has successfully fought corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. An independent voice for taxpayers, Betty Peters has supported true accountability in our public schools and two-year colleges. Betty will continue to listen to parents and teachers and oppose inappropriate textbooks and fuzzy math in Alabama's classrooms. An advocate for higher academic standards, Betty Peters has voted against Obama's Common Core initiative. With your help, Betty will continue to fight for repeal of this disastrous federal control of our schools. We must keep Betty Peters on the Alabama State Board of Education. Vote Betty Peters on June 3rd.
Betty Peters, putting our children's education first in Alabama. Vote Betty Peters.
Paid for by Betty Peters Campaign, 526 Beatrice Road, Kinsey, Alabama, 36303.
Okay, let's do
I was
this.
only talking
Okay,
about this.
all right, let's do this. I'm gonna stay right there with y'all. We're gonna get some clarity now.
Yep.
All right? The books, y'all approve the books. And I say y'all, I'm talking about this office right here, State School
yeah.
Board. You approve several, let's say you approve 5 books, okay? Locally, I got to choose between these 5 books, what I think is gonna be best for us to get here. That's what we wanna do. We wanna get here. We want all of our students to be here, 12th grade, right?
Yeah, but
Am I right?
if a teacher thinks the only thing they can use to get their students there is a textbook, then they're missing the boat, because you gotta bring in a lot of supplemental material. to
Okay,
help those
Yeah, they
students.
we're gonna get in that. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get, I'm going there. I'm going with everything you just said, I'm going there. All right? Step 1, your state school board approves the books. Correct? That we just told me. All right? You follow, you follow.
Yeah.
You follow high school and say, okay, we got 5 books. The principal and the teachers, they study these books and they see what's best for you follow high school. All right? So they take book number 2 out of the 5. That's what they're gonna use. All right? Now, common sense tells us that we need some other supplements. We need something to go along with this.
Yes.
Never in the history of education and we just use the book. We always had to get something else. That's like studying the Bible, you got your commentary. All right? So, let's use the word commentary. They got the book that you approved of. You approved of this book. All right? So I'm going to get a commentary that's going to help me best understand this book so I can teach it to the students. All right? Now, you don't have to approve the commentary that I get?
Not the state.
No.
The state has...
But see, now keep in mind,
Come on.
it's not just the local trying to find resources that help explain the textbook. Textbooks, there are a few major textbook companies. Textbooks are really designed for the most popular states, like Florida, Texas, California, New York.
Louisiana.
Do they have textbooks in
Probably got the same ones we have.
So it doesn't cover everything you want to cover.
Right.
Or it may not say it the way you feel like you need to present to get what kids where they need to be. So you've always brought in extra things, Technology is mentioned earlier. I think one of the good uses of technology is kids can do research. They can go and get additional information that maybe is not teacher directed on trying to find out more about, if you're talking about the Depression, or what were some of the stories, they can look up newspapers from the Depression in their classroom.
Okay, now that's where I want to stay. But just a moment, if y'all bear with me. I want to stay on, you use the word supplement, I use the word commentary. I want to stay on that because I think that's where the problem lies. I think that's where the problem might lie. I'm going to do some detective work here now. Because if I say the best way for me to teach these children is to get me something that promotes homosexuality, I could get that? I could get it?
Well, you could get it, but it's not going to be approved locally. That's why I said earlier about,
Okay.
If you're bringing in some of these kinds of things, you need to get the principal. Usually the principal will do it. Sometimes it goes to the superintendent. But kids have always had access, but now they have a lot more access to any kind of information
Right.
they want to get. But that's not a school problem, that's a societal problem, because they can get it at home, they can get it over at their friend's house. We do have filters on computers in school.
Right.
So
right.
certain keywords come up, it locks the computer up or stops them from going in.
I want to concentrate.
But that's not part of the standard.
Okay, I want to talk about the classroom instructor, teacher, whatever word, professor, whatever word. That's what I want to talk about. I want to, because quite naturally, we know we got kids who are gonna branch off into stuff that they ain't got no business getting into, okay? But I wanna talk about, and we use the word standard, I wanna talk about what the teachers are being taught to teach. Am I making sense now? You follow me? That's what I wanna talk about, because somewhere down the line, somebody didn't just go to bed and wake up one day and say, I'm gonna start a rumor that they teaching our kids that homosexuality is all right. That happened somewhere. And I want to know how would something like that happen? You say the principal. Let's say I come here from somewhere and I'm gonna use the terminology. I don't like the label folks, but let's say I'm very liberal-minded. You understand? Everything is all right with me. You know, people say it's wrong, but I say it's all right. I could really mess up a school, couldn't I?
Yes.
What safeguards are there for me to keep from messing up them students? If I said, okay, man, look here. So I grew up in the 60s. And in the 60s, they said, if it feel good, do it. You understand what I'm saying? So what about if I'm in the classroom and I'm a baby of the 60s and I'm telling them students, hey, look here, if it feel good, do it. If you think that 2 times 6 is 13, baby, that's fine with me. What to prevent that? And I don't think I'm being really extreme. I think, help me.
Well, my feeling about that is, regardless of what the standards are, you've got to have quality people and people of character in those classrooms that are going to prevent that kind of thing from going on. But, we live in an age where a lot of people are like that, and so we just have to watch. But you also have parents. I mean, as a school administrator, often when I would find out there was a problem is because a parent told a kid, and a parent came to me and said, what is this? And then you follow up on that and you check into it.
And that's what's happening now. A lot of parents are complaining. That's one reason why we're talking about this, because a lot of parents are complaining. But now, earlier I think that you said that when you're on the school board, on the state level, you have nothing to say or do about the personnel, the local
No, we
personnel?
don't hire them or anything. But teacher certification comes under the State Department of Ed, but we don't go in there and start picking out different teachers or anything.
The state school board hires the superintendent. And, maybe the CFO, but basically that's all they hire. But they do set regulations.
So if we have a complaint, if we had a complaint about a local principal allowing the school to do certain things, where would we go with that complaint?
A lot of people call me. I've had calls about dirty books or whatever.
Okay, is that the right procedure? That's my question. No. Okay, that's what I want to know.
I actually think it is.
Okay.
Because, and there's a lot of contention there.
Okay,
Some people see it one way, some the other.
I want both of you to tell me why it's not and why it is. Okay, now I know folks call you, but just because they call you, that don't mean that's the right procedure. You follow what I'm saying? It happens all the time, So you said no. So you tell me what procedure is the right procedure.
Well, the state board is not set up to handle local problems. The state board is a regulatory board, and the right procedure is to contact the local school superintendent and let that individual deal with the situation.
And that's when somebody calls me with a problem, I'll say, have you talked to your local school board?
Okay.
And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I have.
So you reflects the problem back to where
But
you don't try to deal with it.
No,
Okay.
if they have tried to go through the channels, then I might, call up Dr. Weiss and tell him I understand there's a XYZ problem.
Is that right?
I don't see a problem with that either. If you've referred them to that and they didn't follow through and you feel like it's a serious problem, needs to be addressed, then go to the state superintendent and let him
We are not
contact
to
the
be
local school.
micromanaging the local schools, no.
Right.
But sometimes you'll hear, well, there was a dirty book, my child brought home this book, had these ugly words, and so did you go talk to the principal? Well, one day he called me back and said, I went over and talked to the principal, and the principal said, if that word's in there, I'll go check it out. Checked it out, and the principal said, if we're marking through it with a magic marker, this ugly word, And I'm gonna look and see if there are any more books by that author. If there are, we're just gonna take them all out. So, it works out sometimes.
When it appears you need help with pet grooming, then look up to someone special, and the most special pet groomers around you follow are Pampered Pets. On South Randolph, Pampered Pets Grooming Salon has Judy as the owner and groomer. So for a great do, come to Pampered Pets. So if you have a special dog or a frisky cat, make an appointment today at Pampered Pets Grooming Salon at 613 South Randolph. Call 688-1333. Your pets need to be pampered at Pampered Pets Grooming Salon.
So that would not be a book that y'all approved, that would be one of
No, that
supplements?
was a library book.
Yeah, library.
That was in a library. Sometimes there are problems with books that are assigned for classes, whole classes to read.
Yeah.
And there are some of those that have been raunchy.
And that's like what I said about I dealt with in '83, same kind of thing.
But the
It's
bad
gotten
thing
worse.
about it is there are some that were called, and I think you've alluded to that, you didn't call it that, when the state school board in the various states, maybe not all of them, but I saw it on a bunch of the states, when they were voting on it, would be like something about this thick, and that would be your standards, like say for English language arts. Well, at the very end of it, it had a reference, and what we voted on apparently included that, although we didn't understand it. And it referenced www something or other, and you go through it, and it was they called them exemplars. And these were examples of what the Common Core Initiative expected.
That's the politics of it,
Yeah.
and that stuff on the
And
bill.
those books, some of them were totally unacceptable. Did the standards say you had to teach those books? No, it did not. But they put them up as good examples of what needs to be taught.
Okay.
And one of them that you may have heard of is The Bluest Eye. I don't know if you've heard of that one. And something about speaking Cuban or something Cuban. There were several of them that the themes in them and the language in them, most people probably wouldn't be content with them being taught in high school.
Answer this.
But it's not specified in the standard itself.
Okay, I got that. Answer this, and I'm gonna ask some more couple of questions. Answer this. How much influence or authority does the state board have in what's being taught in the classroom?
Well, if we vote against something, it's not supposed to be taught. And I remember back in the 90s, I went to a board meeting, and the topic was the health class, the health textbooks. And they had about 8 or so books that had made it through the Course of Standards Committee. And they were to vote on them that day, and there'd been a minority report. That meant some of the people on the committee and maybe some other people
Right.
had complained about
Right,
some of them.
right.
Well, Dr. Morton, who at the time was the deputy superintendent, he agreed, and he made a motion, or, he encouraged that they make a motion to strip some of those books out of the list, after 4 women got up and read verbatim some naughty stuff for 2 minutes.
All right, look.
So that it can be done.
Okay, can the local board, you tell me everything goes back to the local board. Can the local board override or ignore the state board?
No, after they've rejected them, you cannot. If you reject them, they cannot, they would have, if they've been rejected, they cannot go buy them even with local money. Is that not what you understand?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I mean,
those,
where there's flexibility, you exercise flexibility, but there are certain things the state board says is, you can't do this, then you can't do it.
now sometimes if a textbook company would realize that there was a lot of activity against them, and that they were likely to be rejected, formally rejected, they might pull the book before the state school board voted on it. They did that with focus on algebra and focus on geometry back at that same time frame in the 1990s. So if say, in Eufaula, if they wanted to purchase those books, if they had a long time, or in Dothan or wherever, they could have used their local money, but they wouldn't have been able to use state money for it. But once it's been rejected and is on the official rejected list, you better not put it in the classroom. That's textbooks.
Even with local money?
Yeah, even
Can't
with
touch it.
local, no, not if, it's kind of like, well, these things are approved and you can get state money. These things are not approved and you can't use, you won't get state money and you can't use local money either. And those that are just not approved, but not rejected, you can
I don't
buy.
disagree with anything she's saying about this, but just for clarification,
Okay.
the state gives like $20 or $30 for all your textbooks, and each textbook may cost over $100, and you got 4 or 5. So it's not, when you talk about local money, every system uses local money, even for the textbooks the state does approve.
Have to.
That's true.
Have to.
It doesn't, and it doesn't cover the whole
Now,
cost.
look, let's talk about teachers' raises and conditions that teachers work under. My understanding is that that's strictly up to the government and the legislators, teachers' raises. Am I correct with that?
That's correct.
The legislature has to approve the budget, yeah.
Do you have any recommendation? Do you make recommendations on teachers' raises?
The state superintendent comes up with a budget, and they may or may not.
Y'all sit down with the superintendent.
No, we just okay it.
Superintendent do the budget on his own.
Well, he's got his
Present it to y'all.
staff.
Yeah, I know that. I understand that. But I'm trying to see what role does the people who sitting on the state board of education.
Well, we could say we don't like that number right there,
Okay, so you do have say-so into the
a
budget?
little bit.
Okay.
No, not the budget, but the
His
recommendation.
recommendation.
The superintendent, the Department of Education's recommendation to the governor or to the legislature.
Okay.
Yeah, he's correct. That's.
And everything is up to them from that point on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. What about safety in our schools? We have just seen shooting, and last week we saw a stabbing in school
You're talking about across the nation.
across the nation. And I always say this here: we are bad about being copycats. And if we sitting here in Eufaula and think it ain't gonna happen in Eufaula, we're in for a rude awakening. Because those folks watching TV and you making superstars out of these folks when they do something crazy, it's gonna happen. How much say-so does the state board have on school safety?
Every 3 years, the state does comes in and does a massive evaluation of all your programs locally. They do a smaller study the first and second year, and then they send a team in. Some of it's desktop, that kind of thing. And then they send a team in, and they go to every building. They look at all the safety issues, and they write those up. And if you have something that shouldn't be there, like locks on a door or something like that, or something flammable in a storage room, they cite you for that. So they bring those things to your attention that you've got a certain amount of time to correct. So the board has an involvement in making sure that that process is followed, but their staff members from Dr. Bice's office or whoever's the state superintendent actually come in and do that. But there is a lot of effort and a lot of work on trying to maintain safety.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk
You
about.
can't control everything.
Let's talk about resource officers. I want to talk about resource officers. I mean, I understand what you're saying about hazard material and all that kind of doors being unlocked. I know right here. I know what right here in Eufaula. I went to a city council meeting one night, and the resource officer pleaded for more help in our local high school. You're familiar with that? And the question was money. Said they couldn't afford it. Who pays for our local resource officers? What part does the state pay if Eufaula High School needs 2 or 3 more resource officers? Where did that money come from?
there's a little money issued from the state and it'd be the legislature, but it's not enough, and so it has to be supplemented locally, and there's not enough.
Betty Peters has a strong conservative record on the Alabama State Board of Education. Betty does her homework before she votes, and Betty will never be a rubber stamp for education bureaucrats. Betty Peters has successfully fought corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. An independent voice for taxpayers, Betty Peters has supported true accountability in our public schools and two-year colleges. Betty will continue to listen to parents and teachers and oppose inappropriate textbooks and fuzzy math in Alabama's classrooms. An advocate for higher academic standards, Betty Peters has voted against Obama's Common Core initiative. With your help, Betty will continue to fight for repeal of this disastrous federal control of our schools. We must keep Betty Peters on the Alabama State Board of Education. Vote Betty Peters on June 3rd.
Betty Peters, putting our children's education first in Alabama. Vote Betty Peters.
Paid for by Betty Peters Campaign, 526 Beatrice Road, Kinsey, Alabama, 36303.
Now, is that something that the state school board can write up and say, listen, our schools are short on resources? Do y'all deal with that at all, or that's strictly legislative?
Well, I think there could be a study done or discussion on it, and the state superintendent could probably come up with something about it. Could I branch off from that a little bit?
Okay, let me ask you one more question about that.
Okay.
Do the state school board ever present bills to the legislators?
No.
You'd have to go through the superintendent.
Yes.
Do y'all ever present bills to the superintendent? Ask him to present it to the legislature.
Actually, things don't get on the agenda unless the state superintendent puts them on there.
I understand that.
If you knew that.
But this
So
is
we
what
don't
I'm
write a
saying.
bill and hand it to the superintendent and say, push this through, we want you to lobby for it. No.
Why?
Because we hire him or her to be in charge of that, right?
Yeah,
When you say
and one thing about it is,
I ain't forgot about what you wanted.
this is locally or it's statewide, is a board member has no authority individually. Only in the context of a board meeting, an official board meeting, and the official vote, and then the majority would win out. But,
Help me with this.
a board member can't say, we're gonna do this for this school.
I understand that. Help me with it. You representing District 2. It's parents. District 2. Call me. Meet me at the grade house. We want to talk to 50, 60, 70 of us. Representing schools. And we say to you, or to you, we're concerned about the safety at Eufaula High School. We're concerned. We are parents. We're concerned. You representing us. You representing District 2. We want you to write up something to give to the superintendent and tell the superintendent to take this to the legislators, and we're going to stand behind you and get this thing passed. Is that possible? You understand the scenario I'm telling you?
I think you could sit down with the local superintendent and say, I've met with some people and this is what their concerns are, and would you meet with them too? And maybe you could have a task force on it or something, but no, you don't just
The
go
local
out there
people crying that they broke. The locals are already crying. The local superintendent say, we ain't got no money. We ain't got no money. So if we don't have no money
But pass
locally,
it on to
we
the-
got to look at to the state.
Well, you could pass it on to the state superintendent that there are concerns about there's not enough money for X, and would you check into that? Don't you think you do that?
So you can,
But it's just a communicating thing. You don't have a legislative pen in your hand on the state school board.
okay. That answers that. Now, what you wanted to say? You wanted to say something about that?
No.
Go ahead. What you
Now,
want?
I just want to put as an aside, in parentheses,
Okay.
what I'm thinking about when we're talking about all the violence and all that, is a lot of what students today see and read is depressing. It has a lot of violence, and it's not uplifting. And For instance, we have a course of study on the arts, and it's like dancing, music, painting, and drama. And we were going through a PowerPoint one time on the arts, and I thought, this is not balanced. It was depressing. And I have been concerned, like some of our reading material is just depressing. It's not uplifting. It concentrates on disasters, and, all the bad things. And history's history, they're facts, and the facts need to be covered. But we shouldn't harp on it, and we should give children something uplifting to see and to read and to hear. And I don't get that much of it in the contemporary books and the contemporary readings we have. It's just not the art, the dancing. I'd have to actually show it to you, I think. And I think you'd agree with me. It's just, I mean, when it used to be, maybe this isn't politically correct, but if you painted pictures, they needed to be kind of reflected of the beauty of the world, sort of, That doesn't mean you couldn't do something that's not beautiful, but it's almost when you harp on the ugliness and children, if they're being molested at home, they don't need to read books about being molested. They need to read books about good daddies and good mamas.
Now, I don't want to take no side, but I'm disagreeing. I'm gonna tell you from a pastor perspective, okay? I can't always preach about heaven nor preach about hell, because hell is just as real as heaven. Mm-hmm. And I would not be doing my congregation justice if every sermon I preached was a flowery bed or rose, all about heaven and not about hell. You follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Maybe, using your same example, maybe, and that's just me now, I'm not running for nothing. Mm-hmm. Maybe a child that's being molested at home, maybe her awareness comes at school when they're talking about it at school. Maybe she didn't know she was being molested. And school would do two things. They make you aware of what's going on is wrong, and this way you go.
Yes, maybe? But the book I had in mind, it was the molester is being portrayed in a favorable light.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
That is.
But now, when you start telling me about books now, I'm going back to what y'all told me, that you're the ones control the books.
Well, the textbooks.
Okay. All right. So now, you really can't do nothing about the teachers' raises, and you really can't do nothing about the conditions that they work under.
Well, we can, but it's more subtle, and it's, for instance, we had an educator code of conduct, and when you put stuff in there and it's defined, I think the teachers have a better idea of what if they didn't already have a conscience, at least they should know what's expected of them as far as behavior and good character and all.
And Dr. Sal, I'm gonna come to you with this question first, and then I'm gonna ask you to comment on it later, because you got, what is the job of the state school board person, be it you or be it Ms. Peters? Ms. Peters got the job, so she's gonna answer last. You give me your vision of what this job, what is the purpose of your job? If you are elected, what are you elected to do?
I think you have to be informed to make good decisions. And you do that, in my opinion, through studying the issues, through doing your research, but also by going to schools and visiting teachers, visiting principals, superintendents, and find out what they feel is going on. You talk about, we can't pass raises as a state school board, but we can listen to things that maybe they feel are frustrations or roadblocks, and then make recommendations in board meetings and to the state superintendent to try to come up with ideas on how to improve those things. So I think that's a big thing, is just listening, doing your homework, and then stating your case. Now, the vote is the vote. And so I think those are important things to do. And I think there's some things that you can support that you feel like are going to be more beneficial, and you can encourage other board members to support those things. Like, I'm a member of the statewide pre-K task force, and I believe that, especially for a lot of children, they need that little extra to get off on a good start. And so you promote those things that you feel like are going to be helpful and going to make a difference. But you got to be informed.
Okay. When you were, I got to tell something about that. I'm going to give you the same amount of time for the answer, okay? When you were superintendent, one of the things that you were known for is that people had access to you. You'd come in early or stay late, but the parents, if they had problems, they had access to you.
Yes.
How much access would a person have to the state school board person?
Well, they'd have full access to me. I want to listen to what people have to say. I want to think about the situation. I can't always agree with everybody, but I do want to listen to them and see what they have, and then I'll take that under advisement and go from there. But I've always prided myself, and I've said this before, I think it has to do with my counseling background. I'm a trained listener, so I like to listen to people and see what their thoughts are, and then go from there.
Okay. All right.
We had a discussion in a work session not too long ago about who is represented by state school board representative.
Okay.
And one person said that she represented the board and the state school superintendent. And another person said, I represent the constituents of my district. And the constituents of the district includes everybody. That's the local superintendent, it's the local board, it's the man down the street who maybe doesn't even have any children, but he pays taxes. It's, everybody, parents. You should be open to communication with any of them and not have an interest in just one group. And I think that's what I have tried to do, is to like you say, go into schools, listen to teachers, listen to the principal, superintendents, whatever, but the man in the street, the woman in the street, the parents, they need to be able to have access to you also. And if people, like you said, the business people, if they've got a concern, yeah.
Ladies, unlock the cash value in your jewelry box. Sell your gold on Dale Road. We buy gold jewelry, bent or broken, at Eufaula Flea Market, 354 Dale Road.
Sell your gold on Dale Road. Sell your gold on Dale Road. Mr. Pond buys gold on Dale Road. Mr. Pond buys gold on Dale Road. Sell your gold on Dale Road. Sell your gold on Dale Road.
Can I just add one thing to that? I've always been troubled when I would hear superintendents talk about in their district, people are elected by district. And so they come with the agenda that I'm just here to protect my district. Mm-hmm. And as a state school board member, I feel, and I think Betty feels the same way, that you not only represent your district, and you have constituents in your district, but your purpose is to help the whole state. Mm-hmm. And so you really represent everybody in the state, not just the people in your district. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be very narrow-sighted to, just be concerned with people in your district and try to accomplish things that are voted on statewide just for one district.
Let me throw this at you. Let me throw this at you. And especially that you're the incumbent. I live in Barber County. I don't live far from here. I pastor in Russell County. We got the same problem in Russell County that we have in Barber County. We didn't know that this place exists, this position exists. Mm-hmm. So if people got access to you, but we don't know this thing exists, that means there's not very much access, is it? Well, tell me this here, and I'm going to ask you this because you're holding the seat, then you can comment on it. Why is this position, state school board, so little known about? Can you help me with that?
I don't know. Now, in Dothan, like the Dothan Eagle has a lot of coverage on stuff, and I assume most of the other, if they call me up, I tell them what I think about
How
something.
many counties?
13.
13 counties. You have touched all 13 counties. How long you been serving?
This is the end of my third term.
End of your third term. So everybody in all 13 counties, well, not everybody, but 13 counties should know about Ms. Peters.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, because it's just not, what we do as individuals isn't all that newsworthy, most of the stuff we do it together. Most of our votes are the same.
I think you may be underestimating the importance of that position, because anytime you're dealing with our children in school, that's a very.
Oh, no.
You want to tackle that? You want to tackle that question about being so little known, this position? You want to tackle that?
Well, they did a survey in another district with an incumbent, and people that did the survey were very surprised at how little known that individual was. I think it's just sort of part of the beast. But me individually, I feel like I need to go and visit more and be in those schools. And I think I've got confidence of people in those communities that I'll be coming not just at campaign time, but I'll be going to those districts to talk with them about their problems and issues.
I'm very active with the schools. Trust me, I'm very active with the schools. I don't have nobody in school now, but I'm still active with the schools.
Yeah.
And before Dr. Sattler called me and told me about him running for this position, and Dr. Batten, quite naturally, Dr. Batten told me about you, I had no idea. And I think I'm just as informed as anybody else. And like I said, I got a lot of activity with the school. And it just amazes me that a job this important is so little known about.
Well, you take your local board members. When I ask somebody, did you talk to your local board member? Well, I don't know who it is. It's really, you got people that don't know who their state senator is either.
But if I had...
Can I tell you the amusing story about this?
Sure, go ahead.
It's not just board members. I served here 9 years as a superintendent.
Right.
I've been president of the local chamber of commerce. And recently, this past year, I started writing a sports article in the Eufaula
That's right.
Tribune.
That's right.
And I had people coming up to me and telling me, aren't you the one that writes the article for the Tribune? So they knew me from writing an article about a
Remember
football
what
game.
state we live in. We live in Alabama. If we was concerned about the academics and the
Well-
safety of our children as we are the major football, I think we
I agree. But
have
now,
more interest in it.
okay, this goes to both of you, and we getting ready to get out of here, Mark. I can't see the time anyway. Is that 3:30? Okay.
Time flies.
Don't throw nothing at me, Tony. I just looked at the clock. But we can just throw this out, then I'm gonna let you say whatever you want to say as we get ready to close. You watching Gumbo Live. Thank you for watching. We have Ms. Peters, who is the state school board representative for District 2, and we have Dr. Sattler, who is her challenger for the same position. Whose responsibility it is to make this position known, to make you known. Now, I'm biased in that area. I just got elected president of the Eufaula Georgetown Area Ministerial Association. And I think that it's my responsibility to let people know that I'm the president. I don't think people get up in the morning trying to find out who the president is. And I think that as an important position that is, it ought to be visible and vocal. It ought to be visible and vocal. I should have known. And I think that, and I'm being that you should have done something in these years that I've known that you was the school board representative for District 2. Am I off base with that?
Did you go to the recent art and music celebration at the high school here? I've been there the last 2 years. Those are 2 years I was invited that I've been. And, maybe you didn't know about it. I didn't come when I didn't know about it, but when I was invited last year and this year too, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You've got a wonderful program.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I said that. And I'm not trying to lean one way or the other. You know how I knew that was the superintendent? When he was the superintendent here in your program? Because I see him everywhere. And somebody else told me, said, that's the superintendent. So then I introduced myself to him, and I heard before I even went up there that the door was open, but every time we went somewhere, you follow what I'm saying? I think that, let me say that, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm through with this. I think that we all should always be in the campaign mode.
Yeah.
Should always be in the campaign mode. You should always looking to get on Gumbo Live. You understand what I'm saying? Always be in the campaign mode. And I don't know.
Well, I've had...
Y'all address that, and then each one of you, can we give each one of them 3 minutes? Okay. Address that for me, and then each one of you got 3 minutes to say whatever you want to say to the listening audience. According to Bright House, 90% of the voters in Barber County have access to this program. I like to say 90% watching, but I don't know, but I know they got access to this program. And the fact that it's going to be on YouTube, then everybody all over the world got access to both of you, and please feel free to use it for whatever you want to say. So I just want to tell you that, so when you get your closing statements, you got a chance to tell them whatever you want to tell them.
Betty Peters has a strong conservative record on the Alabama State Board of Education. Betty does her homework before she votes, and Betty will never be a rubber stamp for education bureaucrats. Betty Peters has successfully fought corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. An independent voice for taxpayers, Betty Peters has supported true accountability in our public schools and two-year colleges. Betty will continue to listen to parents and teachers and oppose inappropriate textbooks and fuzzy math in Alabama's classrooms. An advocate for higher academic standards, Betty Peters has voted against Obama's Common Core initiative. With your help, Betty will continue to fight for repeal of this disastrous federal control of our schools. We must keep Betty Peters on the Alabama State Board of Education. Vote Betty Peters on June 3rd.
Betty Peters, putting our children's education first in Alabama. Vote Betty Peters.
Paid for by Betty Peters Campaign, 526 Beatrice Road, Kinsey, Alabama, 36303.
Just briefly, I want both of you to address my concern about your responsibility to let folks know about you and about the school board, your position and what you do. Who want to go first? Did I make my question clear?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if I would say campaign mode. I've never run for anything before. This is my first time to campaign, and I'm learning a lot. Somebody told me that to campaign you got to be a beggar. You're begging for votes, or you're begging for money, and so that's a little awkward to me. But I wouldn't say campaign mode. I would just say you got to be out, you got to be visible, and you got to attend things and find out what people are thinking, what people are saying, and some of them are going to know you, and some of them are not. It's not strictly a problem that people don't know you because you're not out. Sometimes it's just you think about a ball game. Usually people don't know the ref's name unless he misses a call. And then everybody knows his name. But you do have to be out and about and meet people.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this question. You want to address that, or you?
No, he's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I ask this to every candidate, and please know that you have the right not to answer this question. And I always say this before I ask that question. One of the things I brag about this program, that I financed it myself, so nobody don't tell me what I can and can't do. I like to say nobody owns me. So would you tell us, can you tell us who's financing your campaign?
Lots of different people. Let me tell you about my very first campaign. My opponent raised $101,000. And it was 7 times what I had. Does that tell you anything? She got $50,000 from the AEA.
Okay. Now what is the AEA?
Alabama Education Association. 83% of her money was PAC money.
So you need somebody that the Alabama Education Association supports?
And the Business Council of Alabama voted.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just grassroots. I didn't pay people to go put my signs out or anything like that. Now, my predecessor, I only remember him being in Dothan one time, and that's when he was campaigning. And Dothan is...
Who was your predecessor?
I shouldn't say.
Oh, you can't say? No. Oh, okay.
You didn't know his name either, did you? Well, they got highways named after him and buildings named after him.
Is that right?
But I did get to be fairly well known for being part of a group that, it was just a group of 2, that led to the investigation of the 2-year college problems with corruption and nepotism and all.
No.
And we did remove the chancellor, who later admitted he had taken $18 million.
Are any of those groups that did not support you at first supporting you now?
No.
The Alabama Teachers Association still not supporting you?
I've never given me a penny, and I've never asked for a penny.
Okay. Would you want to answer that, Doctor?
Yeah, I don't receive any money from AEA. The Business Council has endorsed me. I'm getting some financial help from them. But I'm getting help from a lot of people, a lot of children's organizations.
Now.
Oh, I did get
Private donations.
endorsed by the BCA last time, yeah, but not
Okay.
this
But
time.
now look. Is it the policy for the Alabama education not to support anybody, endorse anybody? Is that their policy?
No.
But they're not endorsing neither one of you?
No,
They're
this is a
usually-
Republican
They're
primary.
usually extremely active, but their history mostly is supporting Democratic candidates.
Now, my understanding, there's no Democrat challenge.
That's right, that's why
In our
they
race.
don't have any money to give, they're not giving much money out on this race.
Wait now. Whoever win between you two will be
Yes,
the
yeah.
state school board representative.
Yes.
That mean you ain't got to worry about
There's no Democrat primary.
And so because there are no, you can't read their mind, but because there is no Democrat candidate, they won't endorse neither one of you.
No,
Is that what
they
you're saying?
endorse Republicans sometimes.
But then not
It's-
this time.
Well, it's based on the person's philosophy, political philosophy and all.
So there's not, no, wait, now, you saying this now, like Sally, help yourself. Are you saying that there's no difference between your philosophy?
I'm saying right now, today, in time, the Republican primary, there's not a lot of demand for an ADA endorsement. Would you not agree?
Yeah.
So see, we agree on
I
something.
mean, we agree on most
Yeah.
things, but there's some things we disagree on, but, they just don't, I don't guess they see that it matters which one of us.
All right, all right.
That money would be better spent somewhere else, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pay for some overtime, Tony. I just got another question
I
coming.
think they have to prioritize where they're gonna spend their
Yeah.
money.
Tell me, from your viewpoint, and then you tell me from the biggest difference between you two. People got to make a choice. And then let me tell you what I found out, and I think I shared this earlier. When people I've been talking to, this race, this seat, has generated a lot of interest. And Democrats are hoping that their candidate can make it to the November election, because a lot of them want to cross over, that they might be able to vote in this election. So I think that it's telling you that it's very important that you be able to tell the voters the difference between, you want to keep it. Tell us why you want to keep it, and tell us why you think that you ought to be elected. I want to start with you, Dr. Sadler. Is that all right?
Well, yeah, sure. I think it goes back to my experience from the classroom to the boardroom. I think serves me well. I understand what's going on in schools. I understand what the needs are. I understand the frustrations that people face. And therefore, I think it's important that you have somebody there that sort of understands that. I told a group the other day, I said, how would you like if you were regulated by someone who'd never been where you are? And, people want somebody that sort of understands the situation and could help. And it goes back to the thing I was saying about jobs. I think one of the reasons the Business Council supports the standards is because they feel like it's going to prepare kids for work better. And so I just feel like that I would be an asset on the school board. Now, personally, I like Ms. Peters. I think she's a great lady. But I just think it's time for some new change, new emphasis. Career tech is a big thing for me, finding ways that kids can use their hands and be successful and find their niche and their aptitudes, abilities. Local control, we talk about Hope Academy and the great things we've accomplished at Hope Academy, and that's a result of having some flexibility to make local decisions. Local people they understand their kids, they understand their problems better than anybody in Montgomery or Washington, and therefore need the flexibility, and that's one of the things that I would stand for, is more flexibility for local systems to be able to accomplish what they feel like they need to do to help kids, because ultimately it's about kids and it's about getting them ready to contribute to society.
Ms. Peters? Now, just to make sure I understand you correctly, you saying the biggest difference is your experience.
Well, not just my experience,
Okay.
my experience as well as my work with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think that goes a long way. And my philosophy really about moving kids ahead and having them all prepared.
Make your shopping dollars go further at Finders Keepers in Eufaula. At Finders Keepers, you can find everything from gently worn clothing, housewares, toys, and much more. Get a 10% discount if you're a senior, veteran, or a Wallace student or staff. And get a reward card for still more savings. Finders Keepers, 102 Edgewood Drive in Eufaula, behind the Shell Station.
Ms. Peters?
I think the Common Core State Standards Initiative, whether you're for it or against it, is the real wedge issue in education across the United States. And the last poll I heard about, a little over 2/3 of likely Republican voters are opposed to Common Core State Standards Initiative. And what you said about, I forgot, you wouldn't want to be under somebody who hadn't, what'd you say?
People making regulations who had
Yeah,
never
okay,
been.
okay. Well, if you look at it also from the parents' viewpoint, I think I can represent the parents' viewpoint very well as other constituents like the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. And I took 3 career tech classes when I was in the 12th grade. I'm a firm believer in career tech. And yes, I want children prepared when they get out for going to college or going into work. I want them to have very high standards, not necessarily Common Core, but I do want the same type excellence that we had available when I was going to school, and many schools still do. But I would represent all the different entities because I am not obligated to any one. And I think I have tried to balance the various aspects, and like and you were mentioning about the Democrats not having anybody to vote for. Well, this is going to surprise you, but when Ella Bell hurt her, I think it was her knee, she asked me to come speak to the NAACP conference here, and I did. And you know what I told them about? Common Core. That was 4 years ago.
Okay.
So I will, anybody, any group that wants me to talk, I'll be glad to talk to them. I've talked to groups all over the place about Common Core, and before that, other things. I've had a meeting on sex education, and I'm all for teaching it from an abstinence-only viewpoint. But anyway, the first resolution I got through on the state school board was to put in the health books the state law about teaching about homosexuality and against, not teaching it is a proper thing, and also to teach sex education from an abstinence viewpoint, which is both part of the state code. But I wanted it in there so the teachers could see it, be able to cite it if anyone asked them about it.
Okay, all right. Let me say this before I let you say your statement, your closing statement. I thank y'all, both of you, number one, for being on the show. And I used to say this about our First Lady, Nancy Reagan, when she was First Lady. She came up with this Just Say No program. Mm-hmm. And the only fallacy I found in that, when you tell people to say no, you got to tell them what to say yes to.
That's true.
You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Everybody ain't going to refrain from, sex.
Or drugs.
So we got to be well rounded. Mm-hmm. We got to say, if, this happened, this is what we need to do. So that's just my so the difference between the biggest difference between you and Dr. Sattler is your view on Common Core. Am I correct?
Yes. We agree on a lot of things.
But that's the separating point for as you're concerned. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I always tell my audience, if you have any questions for any one of these candidates between now and Election Day, which is June the 3rd, I want everybody to go out and vote on June the 3rd. But if you have any questions, you drop them off here at the bread basket, and I will immediately get it to either one of these candidates, and we will answer it on the air. We have to have a special program, we'll do it. But I will give you any questions that they drop off, and that might help you too in your campaign. They may want to know.
And we can email you back then.
Sure, and I will get it to them. But then you get away idea of what's on their mind. I want to thank the bread basket very much. Tony, I kind of overstayed my time. I hate to see my bill. Mark, thank you for being our cameraman. Now we're going to give each candidate. What we say we give them 3 minutes. Give them 3 minutes, and you can say anything you want on your closing. And I'm going to use power of a host, and I'm gonna let you go first. I was raised that way. Dr. Sally, you having any trouble with?
That's fine.
Okay, so whatever. No more. I got no more questions. This is your time. This is your 3 minutes to tell the voters anything you want to tell them.
Well, I just will say what I said in the beginning when I was first running in 2002. I will not be a rubber stamp for anyone, and I promise that I will do my homework and listen to the people before I make a decision. And that's what I have tried to do to the best of my ability all along. That's it.
Okay, now, and let me jump in on something. You got a few minute or two left. When you say listen to the people, you're gonna have some kind of form or something to hear for the people to hear. Okay, all right.
In fact, the AEA representative in Clay County got mad because it did have a town hall type meeting.
All right.
The state, my website is www.bettypeters.com. Okay. All my contact information's on there, Facebook and everything. And people contact me all the time, out of the blue, a grocery store, whatever, you know. And I think if you had a chance to meeting these people, they would say, yes, she responded. In fact, let me add one thing. Back in 2010, we had a lot of social studies teachers that contacted us about the course of study.
Okay.
And I listened to them, and we got some changes made.
Okay. Let's do that picture like we did with the sheriff candidates for the open. Dr. Sapp, your turn.
Well, I've always been a listener. I've always been someone that will listen to people, and I don't know exactly what was meant by listening to one group, because I have 13 grandchildren, and soon we'll have 14, and so I have, most of those live in Alabama. All of them attend public schools who are old enough. So I have a vested interest in the future of this state, and I don't think you can find anybody that says that I don't listen to them, and I go out of my way to listen to them. I feel like my experience is one thing with working in schools, but my experiences with businesses are another thing, and it just comes down to, I'll be honest with people, and I'll listen to what they have to say, and I feel like Dr. Bice and the State Board in general are moving forward, and we're making some changes that are going to help our kids, and I want to see that continue, and I know there's some efforts to try and undermine some of that and make some changes there, and I just don't think that needs to happen. And so I appreciate your support, and look forward to talking to you. And please give me a call at my cell is 334-695-0262, or my website is www.electbarrysadler.com. Look forward to hearing from you, and look forward to your vote. Thank you.
Let's do this again. Let's give them, and come back to you also. What is it, a 4-year term, 6-year term? 4-year term. Give them your number and your email again, because sometimes it goes so fast across when you're on the air. So repeat that
Okay,
to them.
my email is bsadler@ufala.rr.com. The phone number is 334-695-0262.
My email address, and it's my maiden name is at the end, so don't be confused. It's B for Betty, Peters Falk @gmail.com. My home phone is 334-794-8024. My cell number is 701-9810, and my website is bettypeters.com. And I would appreciate your vote, so we can continue to get back control of the state, for the state, from the federal government on education.
Okay, all right. You've heard both candidates, and one of the things that both candidates desire is for you to go out and vote. We want you to go and vote. Every vote counts. We want you to go and vote. You've heard the candidates. You can make an intelligent choice. It's a very, very important position. Very, very important position. And I wish they would put it in the governor race and all these other races that draw people to the poll. That's what we need to work on. We need to work on putting this. Anytime you just got this as an election, people are not enthused to come out.
But it is the same time as the governor's race.
Is the governor's race this time?
Oh, yes.
Well, I didn't know that.
Do you know when the results were in the first time I ran? I went to bed thinking I lost. When I woke up the next morning, called the AP, they hadn't reported any more votes. And it didn't come out till like 9:30 or 10 o'clock the next morning. And the Birmingham News carried it wrong for 6 months because it was a very close gubernatorial race, and people are
All right.
more interested in the governor's
All right,
race.
okay. Now, vote for your governor, vote for the governor, and also vote for one of these candidates. You're watching Gumbo Live with L.C. Green. Thank you and good night.
Betty Peters has a strong conservative record on the Alabama State Board of Education. Betty does her homework before she votes, and Betty will never be a rubber stamp for education bureaucrats. Betty Peters has successfully fought corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. An independent voice for taxpayers, Betty Peters has supported true accountability in our public schools and two-year colleges. Betty will continue to listen to parents and teachers and oppose inappropriate textbooks and fuzzy math in Alabama's classrooms. An advocate for higher academic standards, Betty Peters has voted against Obama's Common Core initiative. With your help, Betty will continue to fight for repeal of this disastrous federal control of our schools. We must keep Betty Peters on the Alabama State Board of Education. Vote Betty Peters on June 3rd.
Betty Peters, putting our children's education first in Alabama. Vote Betty Peters.
Paid for by Betty Peters Campaign, 526 Beatrice Road, Kinsey, Alabama 36303.